All right, welcome back. So let's create some leather textures. So at first we're gonna create something really simple, right? So maybe from one texture. So I'm gonna use obviously VRay material. I'm gonna name it maybe version 1. We're gonna keep that for later. So this is going to be our leather version 1, and what we need to do now is to find some kind of really simple texture. So for example, I'm going to go to my library, type leather, and maybe yeah, I think we can try with this one. It should be quite reflective, a bit more matte looking, maybe less glossiness. So let's just try to experiment with it, because this texture looks like it's screaming somewhere in the middle, in between of the really reflective surface and matte surface, right? So let's just try to recreate something. So obviously I don't have any reference for it. So I mean, you can go to the internet and search leather materials, but most of the leather materials, they look really the same actually, because the grain, the texture of it, the pattern of the texture usually is quite similar. So you know, if you check this, the pattern is kind of the same. Obviously you can get different patterns, like this one is a bit different, that one is a bit different. For example, that one is a bit different, and you can find a lot of leather textures online as well. All right, so it doesn't matter. Let's try to create something that's gonna look like leather, right? So I'm gonna put this first texture there, which is whatever name it is, doesn't matter. So I'm gonna use this as 0.4 summed area. So my texture is gonna look a lot more crispy and more detailed. Obviously this will be a bit slower to render, but obviously we're gonna get more detail from it. And if you want to use none, that's gonna be even slower. So we're gonna use summed area for now, and blur, we're gonna downgrade from 1 to 0.4, and we're gonna drag this into color correction just in case we will want to adjust it a bit, right? So with leather materials, sometimes there could be situations like with fabrics, for example. So you would use a fall off map, but usually 75-80% of the time you will not use any fall off in the diffuse, right? Because it's not a fabric, it's a leather material. Obviously it has reflection, right? It's a solid piece of material, it's leather, right? It doesn't have any air pockets or holes or anything like it. It's not fabric, so it should have some reflection to it. So the main thing now, so I'm going to leave the color correction at this standard color, and what we're going to do now is apply some reflection, right? So we could apply some reflection around maybe 120, right? And now the most important thing is going to be your IOR. Usually leathers will have from, let's just say from 2 to maybe 3.5, right? So it really depends. So let's just say we're going to keep now at 2.5, something in the middle, and we're going to drop maybe the reflection to 80. We'll see how it's going to look, right? So let me just show the background there. There we go. So that's our leather now, right? So obviously it's really, really reflective. And let's just apply this to our model here and see how is the mapping. So obviously this ball is unwrapped. So I think the mapping is it fits perfectly fine. So we can leave that. So now we're gonna render some regions, obviously, just because we want to try to, you know, take a look how it evolves, right? So obviously this is way too reflective, right? So what we need to do now is what I would usually would do is basically try to extract as much information from this one bitmap to all of the elements, right? So for example, I'm gonna desaturate this. You don't need to desaturate this if you want to use to reflection glossiness, but I usually do that just because it makes sense just to separate these things, right? So usually reflection glossiness will not take a color into consideration, just so you know, but I usually like to desaturate for reflection glossiness just so I see that this is obviously going to be used for bump map, for displacement, or a reflection glossiness or something else, right? So a reflection will take a color into consideration, so just so you know. Okay, so I will increase this to maybe 1.5, right? So I'm gonna go to advanced 1.5 and I'm gonna bump this into reflection glossiness. There we go. So now if I'm gonna start rendering this, obviously I can see that it's a bit too matte looking, right? So I'm just gonna make this a bit smaller. There we go. And I will remove the bloom tab there, so I'm gonna have a bit more space, and I'm gonna drag that there and drag that here. Okay, so you see it better. So what I'm gonna do now here is increase this to 3. There we go. All right, so I'm kind of happy. I'm starting to like this glossy effect now. Well, it's not glossy, it's like a matte shade now. We're getting like a matte shade now, like a really soft leather material, right? You can almost feel it. So let's just say I will increase the contrast a bit by pushing this to maybe 1.5 and pulling this to 300. Okay, maybe to 450. So basically this is how you obviously test it out. So let's just try 600. There you go, it's getting more and more reflective. All right, let's just try 800. There you go. So it kind of starts to look like a leather material, right? So I'm rendering this in regions just because I have a potato CPU. I'm running on a 10-core i7. Performance i7 6950X, 10-core, 20 threads, right? Memory 128 gigs of RAM, and GPU is NVIDIA Titan X Pascal if someone wants to know. All right, so let's just say we are happy with our reflection, right? With our glossy reflection, right? So what can we do next? So for example, I'm gonna drop this to 700 for now, and I'm gonna copy this guy, right? I'm gonna copy this guy with Shift, obviously hold Shift and drag it, and then I'm gonna plug this guy into the reflection, right? So now when we plug this into the reflection, so obviously the white is gonna be more reflective, the black is gonna be less reflective. Now for glossiness reflection, how it works is the black one is going to be more matte looking and the white one is going to be more glossy looking, right? So more reflective, okay? So I want to invert this bitmap just because I want a different look. So I'm going to drop that to somewhere there, maybe 20, 35, and I'm going to increase the contrast a bit and put that to 50 now. All right, let's just see how that's going to look. All right, let me try to make it normal again. All right, so I think I'm gonna leave that for now because I thought it's gonna be a bit better result. So you always have to experiment with your bitmap because keep in mind I'm extracting everything from 1, right? So let's just say the reflection is good. So maybe let's just try 3. There we go. And what you want to try to do next is try to blend this bitmap with this color here, with this reflection value here, right? So let's just say I want to blend it at 40, maybe at 35 or so. And what I want to do next is I want to blend that glossiness, right? So let's just say 75. There we go. And we're gonna keep this at 0.9, and the reflection maybe a bit less. There you go. It's a good thing nowadays we have this interactive rendering. It's a lot faster to preview, right? There we go. Let's just try to now increase this guy a bit. All right, so we're reintroducing the reflection glossiness map. So obviously, when you're trying to do this with only one bitmap and you're trying to extract, you know, as much things as possible from one bitmap, it will take obviously a bit more time of, you know, to experiment with. Obviously, when you're happy with the with the diffuse, with the reflection glossiness, right? These are your 3 first things that are gonna be, you know, acting on your leather material. Now, the other thing is gonna be, obviously, it's gonna be your bump map, right? So either you can apply a different bump map, or either you can try to apply the same map, right? So what I would usually do is basically run this through VRay color to bump. So now VRay color to bump, you don't need to run through the saturated one. You can easily plug this guy in, right? Because it will desaturate the color, it doesn't matter. But usually what I like to do is plug this in just so I see that it's desaturated and blah, blah, blah. Basically for me, it's just easier to see that it's a desaturated color, right? So that's how I'm separating these bitmaps and nodes as well. So I'm gonna plug this into the bump. All right, and here is the bump. And as you can see now, what I need to do in regards of the bump map, I wanna kinda invert the bump map, right? So this bitmap is kinda wrong, right? So there are 2 things that you can do with the bump map, right? So let's just say I'm gonna drag a region now somewhere there. So basically I can see this bump map here. So I can see that it's extruding out, right? So I want it to extrude it in, okay? So there are 2 things that you can do. Basically, you can copy this color correction here and make it an invert and drop the colors a bit. So 100 and 150. And you can try that. So if that doesn't work, right, because this bitmap is a bit obviously weird, so you would have to go into Photoshop and make it look a bit more better and contrasty. So what I can do now here is I can try to plug the same bitmap into VRay color to bump. So now I can see this, right? And the next thing you can do is basically put this to minus, right? Minus 30, for example. And that's how you can obviously invert your bitmap, right? So either you play around with this bitmap here, or you can go into Photoshop. So for example, I'm kind of happy now with the bump map because obviously we use the same one. We put that into VRay color to bump, and we dragged it to the bump and using 30 value of a bump map, right? So obviously you can play around with this height as well, right? But I wouldn't recommend just screwing around with this node, because you can easily go here and invert the selection, right? Because sometimes when you will obviously your main node is going to be your VRay material node. If you're gonna start play around with if you're gonna start playing around with every node, Sometimes you can, you know, by controlling this value or whatever, you can easily forget what you did there. Or for example, maybe your colleague jumped on your project and you know, he was trying to change some materials or whatever. You know, you want to keep this basically as simple as possible. So if I would go to this material here, I can easily see that this bump map is inverted -30, right? Obviously, it's quite easy to notice what every node is doing, right? Because it's a node-based system, so it's really easy to understand, right? So another thing I wanted to show you guys is, for example, if I'm gonna go to Photoshop, I can literally do something different there. So what is the name of this? All right, so that's the name. Okay, so I can try to open this in Photoshop and we can try to enhance the texture there. But most of the times, if you're in a rush, if you are doing a heavy production project, usually you're not gonna have a lot of time to play around with your textures. So for example, if I'm gonna desaturate this texture here and try to invert, right? So this is the inverted result, all right? And then we can use levels, right? So with levels, we can really increase and decrease those wrinkles there. Obviously, we can, you know, start, as you can see, we're picking the highlight and we're literally removing, you know, some detail from it if we want to. But in general, I want to leave something along these lines because we get all of this quite easily, right? So in Max, it wasn't doing a lot of justice there. So for example, if I'm gonna open this, right click. So it really depends what you're trying to achieve, obviously, but as you can see here, when I desaturate this and I was using 100, right? So literally inverted map, you can see that this didn't work that well, right? So if I use a normal, obviously everything looks okay. If I invert it, it's kind of obviously not there, right? So when I went to Photoshop, for example, so what I did here is I hue saturation. So I completely desaturate the bitmap, right, with the hue saturation adjustment layer, and then I pressed invert, right? So this is literally what I did in 3ds Max, right? Using a color correction node. So I desaturated the color and I pressed invert, right? And this is what we get. Literally when I right click it on it, what I can see is literally nothing, almost nothing. I cannot even honestly zoom in. I can see some wrinkles there and here, but obviously they're not working as they should, right? So like I said, sometimes this color correction node, obviously it's really useful. I use it all the time, but sometimes it just doesn't do justice, right? So in this situation here now, so what I can do here is increase the contrast with levels, right? And I can save the texture basically. So save as Garuda brown, whatever, bump, or just B, right? So I'm gonna press JPEG, save as, okay? And now I can easily do is shift copy this map, double click, and try to find that. There you go. So that's going to be my bump map, and I can easily run this through the VRay color to bump. So this VRay color to bump, basically what it's doing, it's enhancing the texture by quite a bit, if you ask me. So now what I need to do is basically go here and type 30, okay, and just try to render this out. There you go. So now we're getting a proper bump map from adjusted texture in Photoshop. But like I said, sometimes you know, if you're in a rush, you're not gonna, you know, spend that much time to just adjust the bump map or something like that. But if you really need to, obviously you will open Photoshop and make those adjustments. But in general, you can't get away with a lot of things by, by just controlling this with color correction, inverting it, using some output nodes or something like that. But in general, that's how you create a leather material. So the most important thing is obviously controlling the reflection and obviously the IOR. So like I said, IOR should be from 2 to 3.5 or something like that. Really depends what kind of leather it is. So as you can see here, the leather is quite nice. It's quite matte looking leather. Obviously you can control the reflection in whatever way you want. This leather kind of looks quite soft, if you ask me, obviously because of the reflection, glossiness reflection. And like you see here, the more stuff you apply into your material, obviously the longer it's gonna take to render, right? So this is gonna be our leather one, right? So I'm gonna press cancel. I think it's a decent result. Obviously it's a really simple result just because we're using a really cheap solution, by the way. This bitmap is not that big. I think the size of it is like 2K. I think that should be like a minimum resolution for your textures. The maximum should be 4K or even 5K, more than enough. 4K is more than enough for a lot of situations. So for example, this leather was extracted from, obviously all of these nodes were extracted from only one bitmap, right? So we have a diffuse channel, we have a reflection channel, we're mixing it a bit, right? There you go. And we have a reflection glossiness channel. Everything is extracted from one RGB channel, right? And then we obviously use the same bitmap, put it in Photoshop, desaturate it, invert it, use some levels to make a bit more contrasty, and then we ran it through VRay color to bump, okay? So that's gonna be our first material, right? So let's just create a second one, which we will change a texture there, right? So let's just say I want to change a bitmap, right? So let's just say we want to change something. Let me see. All right, so let's just say we can have this one. So a really simple, the resolution of this texture is what? Details 2.5, that's fine. So we can take this, and I'm not sure if I have a bump map for that. So we can use this as a bump map. I think it's the same. Yeah, it's the same name, that's fine. So, all right, so let's just drag this in and keep this as a 0.5. And keep this as a 0.5. All right, so I'm gonna put this into color correction, right? So I'm just gonna drag this there. And well, actually we can, sorry, that's the first one. Okay, that's fine. So we can delete this and we can drag this guy over here, right? We're basically dragging it here, plugging it into this first node, and it's going to reconnect all the nodes, right? So what I want to do now is obviously double check that summed area 05, that's fine. So what I'm going to do now is I want to change this color here because I'm not a fan of it. Let's just saturate a bit, maybe make it darker. All right, so this one is a bit too reddish. Something, we can make a bit more reddish, right? Something along these lines. We'll test it out, don't worry about it. So, all right, so we have this bump map. So if you don't know, we can extract quite a lot of things from a bump map, right? So let's just say this is a bump map. And usually bump map can easily work for reflections. As you can see, those veins there, right? Those skin scratches, leather scratches, whatever you want to call them, those wrinkles, right? As you can see, they're all black. and outside of the wrinkles the color is quite grayish, right? So obviously we don't want to that those wrinkles would be reflective. So this bitmap is literally perfect for the reflection and for the reflection glossiness and also for the bump map, right? So we can easily use this bitmap as a reflection glossiness and as a bump map. And also if you will want to, you can use this as a displacement, but obviously we're not going to use the displacement at the moment. So I'm gonna drag this guy into color correction here, but because just in case I will want to play around with it a bit later on, right? And I can plug this into color correction there. So I can put this to 105, right? So you don't need to desaturate it because it's already, desaturated. Doesn't matter. This will not change anything. So at the moment, we're gonna unplug this bump map, and we're gonna apply a different name, leather version 2. So I'm gonna apply this leather here. All right, so first things you need to check is the scale, right? So if I'm gonna zoom into my dummy model, the texture looks okay. Maybe I want to rescale it a bit, 0.8, 0.8, and maybe 0.8 here and 0.8 here, right? So, okay, so that should be fine. And now what we can do is try to play around with the reflection glossiness, right? So I want to make this smooth as well. I don't want to make this really reflective, okay? So I kind of like soft leather materials. We will create a reflective one, but at the moment we will create a soft one. So what I'm gonna do here is press 200, right? So I'm gonna make it a bit more reflective. Maybe less than that, right? So I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna mix it up with 7, right? So it's gonna become, I'm blending these colors a bit, these bitmaps. And for the reflection, we're gonna keep as is. And let's just try to render it out. I hope this is not gonna be too saturated. Obviously with leathers, you can have really, really saturated ones. So there you go. As you can see, this leather is a bit more reflective, but at the same time, it kind of works really well, right? So let's just say I will show you, I will experiment with this shader there. So as you can see, the wrinkles there. So I will unplug the reflection. And you can see how it reacts when you unplug the reflection and how it reacts when you unplug the reflection glossiness, right? So you can see that it's a really dull and dead material, right? So now I'm gonna plug this into reflection. Bam. So now you're starting to get some wrinkles, but obviously the reflection glossiness is not working, so still it looks really weird. And then when you plug into reflection glossiness, so obviously everything changes, right? It starts to look like a real leather material, right? So now in regards of realism or taste, so it's really up to you and what kind of reference material do you have in your hands. Basically, if you have a material that is really reflective or something like that, obviously you will try to replicate that, right? So by controlling the reflection glossiness, by mixing reflection and reflection glossiness, and etc, right? So what I'm gonna do now is basically plug this bitmap here and plug this into the bump. So now my bump map should be quite strong, as you can see here. And as you can see here, if your bump map is really strong, look how your material is starting to act differently, right? It's starting to become more matte looking because obviously the light bends more now, and because you get so much detail now in those cracks, right? So basically the light goes and it breaks into those gaps there, into those wrinkles, and obviously you're gonna get less light, less reflection, right? So this is what you're getting now. It's a really, really rough, really rough leather material. So obviously I want to reduce this effect by maybe by 20 and see how that's gonna look. So I just want a subtle effect on the bump map. I don't want it to be really strong, right? So there you go, something like that. So when I'm rendering, please fast forward the video because I don't want to cut it every time I press render. So yeah, just please fast forward it. All right, so it does look okay. Maybe I will decrease the bump map a bit, just by a bit, and increase the glossiness a bit by maybe 6. There you go, so I'm blending a bit more. And I think I'm kind of happy with this leather material. And by the way, we can create obviously different colors, right? So I'm using this color for now, but you can create different variations. And let's just try to do that. So this leather material is working quite all right. I'm kind of happy with it. And by the way, we extracted this from 2 materials basically. So but this material works quite well. Let's just try to change a color. So I'm just gonna shift copy this guy and call it leather version 3. So we're gonna try to change a color. 3. All right. So let's just try to play around with the saturation now, right? So I did desaturate this, and let's just try to something like that, desaturate a bit more. 50, make it lighter. Saturate even more, even more. So I want to make it something like creamy looking. All right, so if the hue shift doesn't work, like you cannot get something that you want, for example, so something along these lines, but obviously I want to make it a bit lighter, something like that. So you have to really play around with the hue and desaturation and lightness just to get that, you know, I want to get this subtle effect here, a really desaturated warm color, right? Something like that. Okay. And obviously I want to make this material more matte looking. So I want to decrease this reflection glossiness to 25 and decrease this to 25 as well. And I will decrease this to 5. Okay. So I want to make it really matte looking. So I'm going to press apply and I'm going to start IPR mode. There we go. So I want to render that out. There you go, and you have this creamy looking like leather, and it's quite soft as well. There we go. That looks really nice. So I'm rendering this at 1.5K resolution, which you should see enough detail into this leather. But obviously if you're going to be rendering a lot less, in a half of a size or something like that, you know, that bump map is not going to be really visible, right? So it kind of, you know, the bigger resolution you're rendering, the more detail you're going to see, because obviously it's trying, VRay is trying to store everything in pixels, right? So yeah, there you go. That's the version 3, right? And we can try to create a version 4, which is obviously just copying pasting, but I want to show you, you know, I want to make you familiar of how to do this, right? And we're gonna increase the difficulty a bit more. So what I'm gonna do here now is create a really dark blackish material, right? So almost black. One. There we go. And that should work quite nicely as well, right? There we go. And let's try it out. All right, so that's black leather. And in regards of the grain of the texture, right, you can get whatever variation you can grasp your hands on, because obviously you can get a lot of textures on the internet. You can get I mean, first of all, you can even mix different bump maps if you want to, right? So for example, I'm going to show you a quick example. All right, so let's just say this leather is working obviously quite well. So you can see how it is easy to obviously set up one material, maybe two materials, and extract a lot of things from it. And then just changing the color with the color correction, and you can create 25 30 different leather types, right? A lot of colors, a lot of different glossiness variations, etc., right? So there you go. This leather works quite well, but I just want to show you another example, which is gonna be the same material, but I will try to implement another bump map, right? So I'm gonna press V5, and let's just try to find another bump map where we did use this over here. There we go. So I'm gonna use the first one, and it should give us those bigger wrinkles, and obviously we're gonna mix it up. So we can go down and find a mix. We're gonna drag this into the second slot, and we're gonna drag this into the first slot, and we're gonna use this at 50, right? We're gonna drag this here, and we're gonna obviously put that into the bump map. And what we need to do now is obviously increase the setting here, right? The bump map, just because we will start getting a weaker result because we're blending both of them. So now if I'm gonna drag a region here, we should start getting different bump map variations. So it's really hard to see now. So let me check that on the viewport again. So for example, this one. All right, so this one gives me that bump map, right? And this one gives me that one, right? So obviously they're quite similar as in leather, right? But kind of want to try to make this a bit bigger, right? Let's try 30. I think it's going to be a bit too much, but it might work. All right, so now I can start seeing those bigger wrinkles there. And obviously our material is getting more matte, right? So there we go. Yeah, I can start seeing those bigger wrinkles now. But the material is obviously really, really matte now. All right, so let's just decrease the bump map and just go to the mix channel. So that's the mix channel, the mix node. So let's just increase the size of it so you will see it better. So now what I'm gonna do here is basically just kill one over the other one. So I'm gonna use 80% of this one, right? And we're gonna get obviously a different result now, right? And a bit more reflective material now. There we go. So we're using just 20% of the other one there. And there you go. That's a different bump map, and obviously it will give you a different result, right? So in regards with colors, you can do obviously whatever you want, right? So for example, so this is going to be our version 5. So now I'm going to create a version 6 with the same one, but I'm just going to show you another approach how to change a color, right? So that's gonna be number 6. Control C, Control V, and just type 6. And for this one, let's just call it X for now, right? So let's just say you have a texture there, and let's just say it's 0, 1, sorry, 0 here, 100 there. So by default, right? So what you can do here now is basically plug this obviously into color correction and just desaturate it, right? So you desaturate it, and the next thing you can do is choose a composite. So you plug this guy into composite layer 1 and create another layer, expand it if you want to, and then you need to find a VRay color, right? So this is a solid color that you can use, and you can plug this into layer 2, right? But before I do that, I will change this to, I don't know, maybe what kind of letters can we get? All right, so we can get a lot of different colors, if you ask me. Jesus, like the whole palette. Let's just say that green, right? So, or maybe that green there. So what I'm gonna do here is use the snipping tool, press new, do this, save on my desktop, whatever name, doesn't matter. And what I'm gonna do here now is drag a bitmap to my material editor, use desktop 01, there we go. And now what I'm gonna do is literally just pick this greenish color, there we go. And I'm gonna put there, and I'm gonna plug it into layer 2, and I'm gonna press on the first layer, I'm gonna press color. All right, so it really depends. Do you want to press color or do you want to press multiply? But usually you should press color, right? And then play around with this color correction a bit, maybe make it a bit darker, right? So you will try to match this leather material. I don't want to make it too dark, right? I want to make something maybe like that. I don't want to make it too dark, right? So I'm going to plug this here. And for this material, I will increase this to 40. So I want to be dominating in the other bitmap, right? And I'm gonna apply this here, right? So if I'm gonna render this again, there you go. That's another color, and that color was taken. So for example, so let's just say the client says, you know, I want to make this couch, I don't know, in 5 different leather colors, right? So, you know, they can send you RAL colors or whatever, it doesn't matter. But whenever you're gonna find that color online or on the internet or on Google, whatever, just basically snip it with the snipping tool. Basically, you could just type snip into your Windows 10 or Windows 7, snipping tool. So you can use this guy and just basically grab that photo or whatever. Sometimes I even grab or import the whole mood board and I just pick colors from it because it's just so fast. You can just literally, you know, you can create another tab here and call it, you know, for example, mood board or whatever, you will import, you know, like 5 different or 4 different mood boards or colors or whatever, and you can just pick the colors there and just apply it basically, because you are working here in RGB space. So it's just basically picking the color and applying it. It's nothing complicated. Don't think about it too complicated, right? So there you go. That's your other leather material. Obviously, to your liking or to your reference, you should increase this reflection or reflection glossiness, or mix in between glossiness, reflection, and obviously the bump map, right? The bump map is quite important because it will give you, like for example, the bump map is quite important in leather materials, but it's not so important sometimes in some situations in the metal materials and obviously in fabrics. It really depends how far you're rendering the material from, but most of the times leather material should have a bump map because it will change the look quite dramatically, right? Because the whole surface is quite reflective. So there you go. So this is my other leather. another option. So we can obviously apply more reflection if we want to. So for example, 70, there we go. Or we can drop back to, for example, sorry, maybe 50. Let's make 50 and make this maybe 2.7. So it's gonna be more the IOR, the reflection IOR fall off is gonna be a lot more wider, right? There you go. So let's just say this material is more than enough. You know, play around with it. Obviously, I will be selling all of these materials for you guys to play around and learn. Let me create another material, which is going to be a more complex material. So for example, so I recreated everything here either from one material or either from two materials. You can easily extract a bump map from a bitmap as well, right? So like I said, so for example, if I'm gonna open this, as long as this texture has a lot of contrast into it, right? So I'm gonna disable this by clicking Control plus I don't know what is the name of this button. Jesus, comma, not the comma. Anyways, I'm not sure what is the button here, but let's just say I will desaturate this bitmap. There you go. And now you can apply a now you can apply some levels, something like that, right? There you go. That's your bump map. So you can use this as your bump map. You can use this as your reflection map and as your reflection glossiness map quite easily, right? Now I'm just curious, what is that button called? Sorry about that, guys. Keyboard keys names. So annoying. All right, so you press Control plus semicolon. Jesus, what's the name? So you press Control plus semicolon to activate and reactivate the ruler. So if you press Control plus R, you remove the grid, right? The ruler. You can create new lines. You can create new lines. Blah blah blah. You can press V for moving the lines, right? So you can move. You can create new lines. And as I remember, you can clear the guides, right? Guides. This is not a line. This is a guide, right? There you go. And you can switch them off and on, toggle them off and on by Control semicolon. What is the name? Semicolon. Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's sorted. So I'm just gonna minimize this and we will create a more complex leather material, right? So really easy. Actually, almost the same approach, but I will recreate this from scratch, okay? So let's just keep this for now. Let's just say I will want to check some things out, just in case I forgot because I already recreated. So I'm gonna put this as a VRay version 5. Sorry, leather version 5. Quite hard to talk and show things and think about what you're gonna say next. Yeah, so just ignore. So leather V6, so leather V7. Okay, cool. So this is gonna be a more complex leather just because it's a more expensive way to create a leather material, right? So usually when you sometimes get a leather material from the internet or buy it or whatever, it doesn't matter. Sometimes they will have these kind of maps, which is gonna be, for example, leather diffuse channel. So this diffuse channel to me doesn't matter at all. Basically, I can avoid using this channel. I can plug only these guys and I can change the color to whatever color I want, right? Because all of these maps are gonna give me that leather look, right? But just in case, I'm gonna show you guys how to plug all of these into the VRay material node and how to properly obviously set them up and how to experiment with them just to get this, you know, similar effect, right? Obviously we can change the effect in whatever way we want, right? So I'm gonna plug this, drag this diffuse. I'm gonna drag this height map, which can be used for bump and displacement, just so you know. I can drag this roughness, so we can use this bitmap for reflection, glossiness, and reflection if we want to. We can even use reflection, glossiness, and reflection with this map as well if we want to, right? You just need to experiment with it, because reflection, glossiness, and reflection, we should use a black and white or something like that. If we want to color the reflection, we can use a colorful reflection into reflection slot, right? And the last one is going to be our normal map. Now, first things first, it's really important. When you import a normal map, always in 3ds Max, go inside, open the bitmap and change this to override 1. That's now it's gonna work correctly, right? Because before it's not gonna work correctly, right? So yeah, that's what it is. So you always need to change that to gamma 1.0 to make it work correctly. The next thing you want to do is obviously VRay normal map and drag this here, right? And the next thing what you can do is drag this height map, which says height, which has black and white wrinkles there, really pronounced ones. So you can drag this into the bump. So basically it's gonna enhance everything, right? And we can drag this into the bump slot, and then we can drag this, we can apply this on our object, and we can check the mapping. So the mapping is a bit too big. So let's just say we're gonna use 2 and 2. Maybe 3 and 3. There we go. So 3 and 3 should work fine. So don't forget to change that everywhere, right? Because then it's not gonna work, or it's gonna look weird. There we go. So for the normal map, because it's so important, I'm gonna use the summed area filtering, which is gonna take a bit longer to render, and it's gonna look a lot more crispier, right? There you go. And for the reflection, it's quite important as well. I wouldn't use none because that's really slow, but obviously you're gonna get the whole detail from it. And for the diffuse, yeah, I'm not a fan of this color, so let's just try to change it to something else, right? So let's just say we want to find, I'm not even sure, honestly. You don't have a lot of options, but I will try to create something like, for example, where's that bitmap? Bitmap, desktop 01, there we go. So I will try to pick that color out. All right, so color correction, desaturate, make this 300. All right, and then we need is composite, drag it there. And the next thing we need is the color, right? So with the color, let's just try to go here and pick this almost like a forest green color, right? Honestly, I'm gonna try to make something like a forest green or something like that. All right, something along those lines, right? And I'm gonna try to composite it. So honestly, if you wanna use this color and you like this color, you can just drag this straight into diffuse, right? But I wanna change the color, so I'm manipulating this with a bit, right? There you go, and just choose color, right? There you go. Or you can choose, sorry about that, or you can choose multiply, which is going to be really, really dark, but obviously you can plug then another color correction, or just increase this to crazy numbers. But the more crazy numbers you increase, the more detail you lose, right? So you kind of want to use the color because it will take just the color, right? There you go. And then you can even play around with this one so we can bring back the detail, right? Bam, there you go. So so let's just say let me change the color a bit. I don't want to maybe greenish, I want maybe a bit more bluish, something like that. Ooh, that's a nice color. I like that color. All right, there we go. So we can plug that there, and we already have the bump map. Now what we need to do is obviously double check that everything is on 3. Yeah, it should be fine. So the next thing you want to do is obviously change the IOR. So I'm gonna change this to 2.5 for now. We can change that later on. And let's just check this bitmap. Everything is fine, and we need to find is color correction here because we will want to adjust it a bit. So reflection glossiness, right? And let's just change the reflection there, and shift copy and change this to reflection, right? And let's just try to blend it a bit, right? So I'm gonna blend it for now 90 and 90 for the reflection, right? So that's our material here, and obviously you can see that we did end up with more nodes, right? So it's a bit more complicated, it's a bit more fiddling around, but usually the textures look you know, as good, right? So I'm gonna press the IPR mode. There we go. So there we go. It's gonna start rendering it, and I'm kind of happy with this result. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. So like I said, you can play around with it, you know, as much as you want to get that nice effect, but you know, the main thing is basically IOR, some reflection, if you know, extracting some bitmaps and here and there, but most of the times that's what you're gonna get, right? That's your soft looking leather there. And if you want to increase the reflection or reflection glossiness, you know, you can just go here. So for example, I'm gonna go advanced and I'm gonna go maybe 300, right? Bam. Okay, that's a bit too much. That's way too much. All right, so this is gonna be, if you press there and press U to update, there you go. That's really, really reflective, right? Obviously, I'm not a fan of these leather materials like this because they look really, I don't know, they just look cheap and bad, right? It looks like it was made in, I don't know, under the bridge. I'm not joking. It just looks cheap, right? Like I said, you know, you can get reflective leather materials, but it's kind of rare thing, honestly, and it does look really cheap, right? I wouldn't even put that on furniture because it does look really bad. And honestly, maybe some people just, you know, really like these glossy leather materials. So for example, glossy leather sofa. So for example, oh my god, that's just horrible. But I'm pretty sure you know what I mean, right? So for example, a sofa like that, you know, you just want to kill yourself basically by looking at it because it's just quite ugly, honestly. This sofa as well, the leather is just, honestly, it's not my taste. Like I said, some people do like this kind of a shader. I would never buy it, right? So this is, it's okay-ish, right? The design of the sofa, obviously it's quite comfortable, but looking from a design perspective is just ugly as hell. The material is okay-ish, right? From 10 I would give 3. So you know, I'm more of a fan of you know, these soft looking materials. Okay, so yeah, this is honestly, this looks like metal, but you know what I mean, right? So obviously if the client asks you to do something like that, obviously you will do that. So let's just try to obviously recreate something like that, right? So I'm pretty sure I have somewhere a material like that. Maybe we can recreate that. Okay, so All right, so let's just say we are happy with this material, and we can leave it for now. So this was a more complex material, but as you can see, this is quite easy to set up, right? So color corrections, play around with it, but obviously the main bone is really easy, right? For the leather, it's not like leather you playing around with fall off maps, you plugging out, plugging, blah blah blah. But this is quite straightforward, right? You pick a color and then you play around reflection, glossiness, reflection, and all of that kind of stuff. To some, maybe it's gonna look a bit more complicated than, for example, fabrics or whatever. But to me, leather is quite a straightforward material. All right, so let's just try to create this this kind of a material here. So first of all, we need to find something similar, as in the so I just copied this material because I want to speed this a bit up, right? So let's just say Control C, Control V, and we're gonna put this as an 8. All right, so I want to show you guys as much examples as possible. So let's just try to find another, another texture, which is gonna be something, I don't know, where is it? Leather, there you go. So let's just say we're gonna try to use something different now. Nope, that's horrible. All right, we can use this guy, I think. I don't know, maybe this one. I'm not sure, maybe one of these. I mean, you can choose whatever material you want for that reflection to happen. It's just a quite easy material to create. We can even change, actually we can even change the hue of this one. So so I'm gonna delete this. Oh, sorry, we don't need to, you know, create anything spectacular here. We just need to recreate that material basically. So I'm just gonna keep the take this material here, and I'm gonna paste the name there. So V8, right? So now what we need to do is obviously change the hue. So that's, sorry, green. There you go. Nope. All right, let's just try to make it lighter as well, maybe. So we need more red, because that material is quite it's quite saturated, if you ask me. Well, maybe we're not gonna make that saturated, something along those lines, right? So all right, that is really saturated. And don't want to go too high. Okay, let's just try to apply it for now, because we know that the mapping is fine, right? And now the most interesting bit is going to be playing around with the reflection glossiness, right? So we need to put this to, obviously that is fine, but we need to put this to maybe 3. All right, there we go. So, and now we need to mix it up a bit, maybe. So 35, let's just mix it up with 60, maybe 80 for now. Let's just see how it's gonna look, right? So for the bump map, we need to put this maybe to 20 for now, or maybe 15. So we're reducing the bump map, because usually some of these textures don't have a lot of bump, usually, and sometimes obviously they will have a bit of the bump. So we can adjust that later on. All right, so there we go. We have our texture there. And let's just try to render this thing out. All right, so first things first, let's just check the IOR. So as you can see, the IOR here is a bit lower, right? So it looks like it's reflecting only on the highlights there. Obviously, this was lit with some kind of you know, fill lights, flashlights, whatever, because I can see that it's using a softbox or something like that reflection. So All right, so for example, so I'm just gonna move this here, sorry. I'm saying so many times because I don't know what to say. I'm joking. Anyways, let's do this now. So let's just drop this to 2. And as you can see, the result is getting a bit better, and I don't really like the bump map is too strong. So let's just plug that there. All right, so something like that, right? So it's a bit, so for these kind of materials, you would want to avoid that drastic bump map, right? So you just need a bit of it. You don't need to over exaggerate it, right? All right, I think this material is working quite well. I don't really want to make it more reflective, like maybe we are somewhere in between of this and my matte looking leather materials. So if you want to obviously increase this, you can by just going into color correction here, reflection glossiness, right? And for example, from 3 to 5, and that will, you know, become more reflective and it will look worse, right? So don't do that. Just press 3 and you're good to go. So I'm kind of happy with this material here. It's not too reflective. I mean, crazy reflective, right? You don't really want to do that. You kind of want to make something in the middle, or you know, you kind of want to make something look a bit more expensive than cheap. I mean, I would never buy a sofa like that. I'm not sure, you know, obviously there are interior styles with this kind of style and, you know, these kind of materials, but yeah, most of the times they don't last. So, all right, so let's just say I will leave this material like that. If you will want to increase the reflection, play around with the reflection node, color correction here or color correction here into reflection glossiness, or let me just cancel that, or for example blend blend these numbers a bit and take a look. Just like I said, don't over exaggerate this because it will look weird, right, and unrealistic. So another thing that I want to try to do here is so because we created this material here, I want to try to experiment with it a bit more, right? So I want to show you guys how to experiment with some dirt maps, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shift this material off, and so I'm gonna leave this newish material, right? So we don't have no scratches, no nothing, right? So I'm gonna use a blend material now, a VRay blend, obviously. So gonna plug it there. I'm gonna plug it there. Whoops, sorry, plug it there. There we go. And I will change this to version 9, right? So that's gonna be version 9. And actually I'm gonna say keep the same name there. There we go. So I'm gonna apply on my dummy. There we go. And obviously it's gonna render the same as you can see here. There we go. And another thing that I'm gonna do is put this here, right? So I'm gonna shift it up, shift it down, plug it into code 1, right? So there you go. And what I want to do here now is try to desaturate this, something like that, right? And I want to keep this at 3, for example, and desaturate it even more, maybe. Or do I now? 2. All right, I think that should work. What we need to do now is really important, is to drop the glossiness, right? So maybe to 1.5. So this is gonna be the tear and wear result, right? So we will play around with the saturation here because I'm not sure which one is gonna look best. Maybe desaturated completely, I'm not sure. So now obviously the VRay is blending it. So now we need to find is the dirt map, VRay dirt. And we want to try to play around with the dirt map by maybe, let's just say, I don't know, 6 centimeters radius. And we're gonna plug this into the blend one. And we need to invert this color by swapping it. There we go. So that's gonna be our main color and that's gonna be our effect, right? So now look what's gonna happen if I'm gonna press, let's just say 3, right? And I'm gonna invert the normals. So if you press invert normals, basically you're gonna get that effect on every edge outside, right? So every edge outside of the geometry will get that effect, right? Even that edge is gonna get that effect. So if I'm gonna render that now, so you will see that effect. There you go. So obviously the distance is way too big. There you go. So that's a bit smaller, but just keep in mind that this surface is touching really closely to the ball, which I have obviously in the inside of this cloth. But if we're gonna render something there, you're gonna see a different result. So now we will need to increase the radius, so 5 maybe, and I'm gonna increase the subdips to 8 just in case. All right, so we're starting to get that effect there, right? So obviously how the dirt map works, I really want to show you, by the way, with some simple example, right? So for example, so blend, I'm going to use a VRay material. I'm going to make it small. I'm going to make it small there. So I'm going to double click there and I'm going to click red there, for example. So I'm showing this in the same example as I will be showing there, right? So I'm going to plug this into base and I'm going to plug this as an effect and I'm going to click this dirt map there, shift, and use it as a blend map, right? And I'm going to apply this on my dummy scene, right? So now if I'm going to render, look what's going to happen. So you're seeing where we're getting red, right? By the way, let me just stop this for now and use the IPR mode. So we're getting our effect over there, and it's obviously fading away because these wrinkles are touching each other quite closely. So that's why, that's how VRay Dirt is calculating this. Obviously you can use a distance texture, a distance node, but we're gonna keep that for later on for my future videos. So now I'm gonna press invert normals off and you're gonna see a different result there. You're gonna see everything that it's inside. So it's gonna apply that effect inside, etc, right? So I'm gonna keep this as 20. And as you can see, you're getting that effect only on the inside, right? So I'm gonna invert the normals and use maybe 6. So you can set up your dirt map like that because it's just gonna be a bit, well, quite a lot faster to render, right? And you will see, you know, the effect basically. So let's just try 9. And what I want to do is use the output just to make it more, just to put more contrast onto it, right? So for example, I'm going to use the output there. I will enable it and I will create 2 points. We'll drag one there somewhere and one there. Just experiment with this curve. It's nothing complicated there. So we're getting a really big contrast now. Let me check. All right, so we're getting green in the middle. Okay, so this effect is a bit too strong. Let me just move this there. All right, let's just move this there now. All right, so that's red, that's fine. And me move this here somewhere. And maybe there. Alright, so this is somewhere around what I want it to be, right? Alright, let's just say it's fine. I don't want to spend too much time here, but I think I will. So let's just go to my dirt maps and let's just find some kind of a weird scratchy looking dirt map, right? So something maybe like that. I think that should work perfectly fine, right? So so let's just drag this into the radius. And as you can see here, it doesn't look right because we need to get scratches and stuff. So let's just try to invert this bitmap. There you go. And now we're getting what we really need to get, right? Those scratches and all of that kind of stuff. So sometimes play around with the bitmap, right? So green is your main color and the red is your effect color, right? And we're using our VRay dirt as a subdivs 8. And we inverted the color. We're using 9 centimeters of radius and we're using invert normals, right? Everything else can be by default. I'm not gonna go into dirt map really heavily. There we go. So we're getting some effects there. So let's just say, let me just check one thing. Let me just render this top bit because it will give that effect. Yeah, there we go. All right, it's a quite drastic effect because it is touching the ball inside, right? So if I'm gonna click the ball and let's just say delete it, I will not get that effect anymore because it's not touching any objects there anymore, right? There we go. All right. So we can delete the ball if we want to. Doesn't matter. But I'm just gonna go back, and what I'm gonna do here now is select these guys, right? And I'm just gonna object properties renderable, right? Off, and exit the mode again. There you go. Now we're getting this effect, which is a really subtle effect, right? So now what I need to do is really easy. Basically, just unplug this guy and honestly just drag it here and reconnect into blend 1. Delete that guy. Or delete that guy. I'm having VRay next bug. So open F10, close it and delete it. And now I'm gonna apply this on my object, right? And we can delete this guy, right? So now we should get some really cool effects. So now if I'm gonna render here, you can see a bit of that effect. Maybe we'll need to increase that. I don't know. Let me check. All right, so we're getting a lot of that effect on the bottom. And as you can see, obviously rendering blend materials, especially like leather materials, they do take a while to render, right? Especially on a potato machine. So there you go. You will get some wear and tear effects. And you can apply, a lot of different materials. Sorry, bitmaps, by the way. You can even go and apply some kind of, for example, maybe scratches, maybe something like that, for example. And let's just check. I think I need to put this to 10. I cannot remember now. 10. So let me check. All right, that's a bit too small. Yep, that should be fine. Let's just check it out, how it's gonna render. Maybe it's gonna be a much more nicer effect. So the thing is that you can mix a lot of different bitmaps, right? A lot of them. There you go, you're getting some scratches here. So let's just say I want to increase the contrast now. And let's just say I want to increase this radius for 14 centimeters. There we go, so we're getting more of those scratches. So if you want to reduce this effect, either you can make this bitmap darker, or you can just decrease this color down there. And you will get less of that effect, right? So maybe you want a subtle effect, right? So for example, that or that. So basically this color is telling VRay, you know, how much of that material of that effect I want to let through. So maybe more of that, so something like that maybe. There we go. So I'm not gonna render the whole thing obviously because it will take time to do that. So let me just check this guy. All right, so we are getting some scratches there, which is fine. All right, so I hope this made sense. So you can play around with the dirt map with different bitmaps and mix them together if you want to. And if you want to reduce the obviously the effect. Sorry, I'm going to show you one more time. So either you make this bitmap darker, as in putting this number down from 1 to 0, so that's going to become black, right? So if I'm going to put 0, did it become black? It didn't render it out. Oh, sorry. Okay, so you have to go up. Yeah, so yeah, like I said in my previous videos, VRay should solve this issue, especially for the beginners, because sometimes, you know, for a beginner understanding, if you want to make a bigger number, which is going to be, for example, 1, you would think that that effect will go enhanced, right? And if you would put 0, that effect would just basically go off. It would kill itself, right? But in some situations with VRay and obviously in Max, I'm not sure why this algorithm is working like that, but sometimes you put a higher number and it will give you less of an effect, which is a bit annoying, obviously. It's like a threshold, honestly, but you know, who cares? If you're an artist, you don't really want to think about it. You just want to concentrate on your artistic work, right? You don't want to concentrate on which way the number is going. That should be solved by coders, right? So, but it's just my opinion, obviously. But that would be a lot easier and faster to understand. It would be a lot more straightforward. All right, cool. So VRay dirt. All right, so either you make this color darker by increasing this output color, which is ridiculous. VRay dirt, so you can decrease this color here. Or, so for example, I'm gonna make this white, right? So it's gonna be fully visible, as you can see here. Or you can go to your, you know, you can even create this with the output if you want to, but don't touch the output, all right? So you can even control this with this value. So you drop the bitmap completely down, right? So now it's blending in between, and then you drop this to black. So basically your bitmap is not active anymore and you're controlling this with this black color, right? So now, for example, you're gonna let through 50-50 blend, and now I'm gonna use 100% of that bitmap. And you can, I mean, there's so many ways to control this, right? So I'm gonna just drop this color a bit there somewhere, right? Just to make it less over exaggerated. Okay, so I'm gonna cancel this material. Sorry, this creation here. And all right, I hope that I want to show a couple more things. So leather. I'm not sure which one can we create next. I mean, all of them are quite the same. I mean, if you want to create something really matte looking, you can, something like that. I'm not sure, but we created quite a lot of materials already. We have 9, so we can create a 10th one. Let's see what textures we have. So let's just say that's gonna be leather. Leather version, was it 10? Should be 10, right? So that was 9, and that was 8. Okay, we're on the right track. So let me save this file. I don't want to lose it. So all right, version 10. So what bitmaps do we have? All right, let's just try to create this snake crocodile looking material. All right, so this color here is quite, I don't know, it's quite ugly, honestly. I cannot even see what it is. Okay, so it's a bit lighter now, 1.5. Let's just try to change the hue, right? Ooh, that's cool. Yeah. Nope. Green. Yeah, there we go. Nope. 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 What about this? Something like that, right? Let's just plug this guy in. All right, so obviously we want to make this bitmap sum the area of 5, and obviously you can do things like this. So for example, composite, put that there, put this guy in, and VRay color, there we go. And let's just say I want that color there. And let's just say something like that, right? And we can go here, expand it, play around with color, bam, that's the color, and play around with multiply, bam, that's the multiplier, right? So with this guy we can increase by decreasing the number. Is it true? All right, so this is working correctly. Anyways, my mistake. I think it was the dirt map or whatever, mixing it up a bit. So all right, so that became darker, which is quite weird. I'm not sure why is it working like that. So if I'm going lighter, this is going darker, which is yeah, that's new. Okay, cool. Ignore this number, okay, for bitmaps in general for now. So we're gonna use our old friend called color correction. Plug it in there, plug it in there, plug it in there. And now we can try to make this happen, I assume. Yep, there you go. That's how it should work. So 500. So you can even do things like that, right? You can obviously, use a color correction, make it lighter, and obviously overlay it, right? But in this case, because we have this bitmap here, and as you can see, we have some highlights, a bit of the highlights on the bitmap itself. So we're gonna avoid this. Approach here, right? So we're gonna keep this bitmap here, and we will apply this guy here, and let's just check the. Okay, so how it's working. It looks okay, I think. Let me check. Let me invert this 90 degrees maybe. No, I'm not a fan of this. 0. I think 0 would work. All right, so summed area 05 and summed area 05. All right, so that is fine. So now what we need to do is try to play around with this guy here, right? So we need reflection, and the black bits are not going to be reflective, okay? And because that's a leather, I'm going to go with 2 for now. And let's just see how that's going to look. So, bam. Ooh, that's really reflective. All right, that's really reflective, and well, it really depends what you want to try to get here. So let me try to shift that down. Reflection glossiness. Bam. That doesn't look bad, but I'm not a fan. So let's just try to put the 2. And all right, so that's 2, and let's just try to blend this by 0.9 and glossiness 60. Maybe not 60, maybe 80. So I can see it from the light cache that it doesn't look really well. So it's quite fast to render. It doesn't look that bad, I have to say. Doesn't look that bad. Maybe I need less of this. And let's just put this to 8 maybe. All right, so I'm kind of happy. I mean, I'm not sure about this material, but I think it works. I think it does work. So let me try to move this to VRay color to bump. I'm gonna move this guy here, and I'm gonna plug this into the bump slot. So that bump map should work really, really well. All right, it does work really well. So let's just put this to 05 and put this to maybe 10 because that's way too big. Because we don't have a displacement map, that's gonna do it. There we go, and that's your I don't know, snake, crocodile skin, whatever, fake leather effect. There you go. So let's just say that's gonna be our version 10. And let's just say we're gonna create a whoops, nope, Jesus. All right, Control Alt, hold it, drag it, select it, delete it. I cannot delete it. Jesus, come on. Nope. Delete. All right. Alt, Control, there we go. And now we can try to make this as our 11th. So we're gonna create this one and basically another variation, and then we're gonna create maybe a suede leather. We'll see what we can get from it. So now I'm just gonna try to change a color. Not sure which color now. Nope. Ooh, maybe. All right, maybe let's try this. Let's try and see how it looks. All right, that looks pretty weird and at the same time pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna leave it for now. I'm just gonna do one thing is decrease this glossiness to 20 because I think this material wants less reflection glossiness. It says, Romas, please give me less reflection glossiness. And you know, I have to do it. All right. All right, I think you got the point how to create something like that as well, right? Really simple setup. So experiment with the color. Obviously, I'm not sure about this color. It's quite ugly, right? Ooh, I like this color. Maybe desaturate a bit. There we go. Sorry, I just need to try this out. Wow. Now that's a stylish color, right? Look at this. Look at this sexy color. Damn. Nice. Nice. Really cool. I'm gonna leave this because it just looks really unique, right? Alright, cool. Forget about that. We need to create another material, which is gonna be actually, I'm gonna create this from scratch, okay? I cannot delete the material again because of VRay. Jesus. I hope they're gonna fix this issue pretty soon. So I'm gonna close it and delete it again. Cool. So I'm gonna save this again, or just press Ctrl S if you want to. So version 10. Ooh, I just delete the material? All right, cool. I think I deleted too many materials. All right, so last material, I promise. I'm not gonna show you anything else in leather because I think that's more than enough. And by the way, I will create 25 materials so you will able to get everything in one go, right? So all right, last material. Let's just try to find. I think I had that texture somewhere. I hope I have it. Leather. That's not the one. All right, let me find that texture. I'm gonna pause the video for now and I'm gonna come back. All right, so I found the material, sorry, the texture, and we're gonna use something like this. I think it should work. It's not a big texture, but we will try to obviously recreate that result. Obviously, you can create that material with textures like, for example, this one. You can use a really high bump or something like that, but we'll try to recreate from that one. Maybe we will succeed, all right? So I'm gonna drag this. By the way, first of all, I wanna check that this texture is seamless first of all. So filter, offset. It looks like it is almost seamless, right? It is seamless. Yeah, I think I masked it out. Yeah, okay, cool. So let's just drag this texture in. Sorry, let me just download. There we go. So I'm gonna drag it here and put that into color correction. And I want to put this to some area, 05 maybe. Put that there. And now that is really, really important. We want to kind of try to use a fall off, right? So we want to use a fall off. We want to duplicate this, desaturate a bit and make it maybe 0.4. And we want to make this as a really, really wide fall off. Sorry, narrow fall off. There we go. So we can add that there. All right, so it will give some effect on it. So let me just type that there. That's gonna be leather version 12. Let's just check the map. All right, I think it's a bit too big. Oh, let's try 0.5, 0.5. All right, so it is not seamless, so we kind of need to fix that issue now. I thought it was seamless. All right, Control J, offset. All right, so that is fine. So the horizontal is fine, but the vertical is not. It didn't look fine. Yeah, but that's so weird. I cannot see the I cannot see the... I cannot really see the seam. All right, that's really weird. I can see that seam there. Okay, I think I was showing a wrong preview. Sorry about that. All right, so let me put that to 0.2, 0.2. Check this out. All right, that looks around like that. Okay, so let me just check. Yeah, I think that's fine. Honestly, I don't need to do anything else. It's just fabric material, basically. Joking. We will do something about it, man. We will do. So look how fast it renders. Jesus. Brrr. On my potato machine. There we go. All right, so this is quite nice. I mean, the texture is quite nice that I found. So let us try to do one thing. So in general, this material will not really have a reflection, because how suede is made is basically this. It has small hairs, right? Um, basically was brushed. The leather was brushed, and it made really matte looking, right? So obviously you would have these kind of a brushed, a really massive brushed effect. So it kind of looks like a hair or something like that, but it's not. It's really hard to explain, but you know what it is, right? So let us try to experiment with this a bit more. So let's just try to, so what we need now is a bump map. So for example, I will try to find some kind of a noise map there. So let's just try to play around with this noise map and see how it's gonna work. So for example, summed area 0.4, and I'm gonna use this in a bump map or in a color to bump. Maybe it's gonna enhance it a bit better. I'm gonna put this to bump map, and literally I'm gonna just remove this guy. All right, so the bump map is quite okay. We just need to get the bump map now. So 80, for example. Let's just see how that's gonna work. All right, so we are getting a lot of bump. I think we're gonna have to use a displacement. All right, so that's quite bumpy if you ask me. Maybe let's try 2. All right, so let's just try another approach, which is gonna be a noise. So noise, put that to 0.5. There we go. And put that to 0, 0, I don't know, 5. And put that there. All right, that's way too small. 5. Whoops. 1.2. All right, so we're getting something there. 0.1. There we go. We're getting something similar, right? I mean, honestly, we can use this guy, but I'm not sure how it's gonna react. So it kind of looks like it's reacting like this map, really similar, right? It does work. It does work. I cannot say that it doesn't work, but the noise map kind of giving us this procedural look, which is quite cool. And it is really sharp. So let's just try to play around now with the bump map there. All right, so it is giving us some some different effect here. So now we have this fall off effect, a bit of that fall off effect, right? Let's just try to put some reflection, maybe 100. And let's just put this to 0.5, right? So really subtle effect, something like that. And just remove this guy. So that's the thing, this material shouldn't have any reflection on, because as you can see, it does start to look weird, right? Even if you're gonna bump in the, where is it, into reflection glossiness, it will start to look weird as well, because it does look like it's reflective in a way, right? But at the same time, you want to get something smooth, right? So for example, if we're gonna go here and type the leather, so always try to find some kind of there we go, some kind of a result, some kind of a reference, right? So if we carefully check this suede material, you can see that it doesn't have any reflection, right? So you would think that, oh, it's a leather material, you know, it will have reflection, blah blah, it's leather. Well, yeah and no. You have to always try to check a realistic material. So for example, I'm trying to create something like that, right? But for example, in this situation here, you have the reflection, right? But this is a suede material, but it's a different suede material, right? It has this some kind of like a matte, really matte looking surface, right? So we will try to recreate this after my approach in regards of this first suede material. So I'm gonna add one more material, right? But in general, this material is almost the same as we created in the beginning. Basically just removing the reflection, glossiness, lightness to a bit darker color, right? So as you can see here, obviously this material here doesn't have any reflection on it. So what we're gonna do here now is really easy. So we're gonna remove the reflection completely. I'm gonna jump this to 1, and we're gonna put this to a lighter color there. So we're gonna put this to 7 maybe, or maybe 2. And we're gonna try to correct these curves here a bit. So we're gonna make this material a bit more soft, something like that, right? So let's just try now, and keep in mind that we can use a displacement on it if you really want to, right? So if I'm gonna disable the region now, so now we are getting something like that. So let me check this glossiness, clear. We don't really need glossiness. All right, everything else looks fine. All right, so we have the bump map. We have we don't have any reflection anymore, and it is quite slow to render, obviously, because we're calculating such a big bump map there. Let's try to switch this to none and Fresnel. Because always don't forget to experiment and with Fresnel and perpendicular parallel, because sometimes you can get, you know, different effects. So this highlight looks almost the same-ish. They just change, sorry, the wrong one. And let's just try to fix this up again like this, and we can drag this and do something like that. There we go. So let's just say we're happy with this result. Now let's just try to push this guy into the displacement and see how the displacement is gonna act. So for the displacement, I'm gonna put 2 and we're gonna recalculate this. Now I'm not sure if we are rendering the displacement. Let me check that. So if you go to common, obviously the displacement is on, and the global switches, the displacement is on. So let me try that again, and changing the default to 3, that's fine. And let's just increase this displacement to 10, for example, and see how that's gonna work. So I'm gonna render now with the production rendering. I don't want to make this, yeah, that's insane. Sorry about that. So let's just click that to 3. So sometimes VRay is not updating itself quite well with this IPR mode. There we go. Alright, doesn't matter. Let me just render this guy. Alright, so it does give us a bit of a better result, as I think. I think this is a bit too much, so let's just try 2 for now. Let's just try to render all of this. There we go. And even now, I think the displacement is way too big. Let's just try to do that at 1 and drop this to maybe 2 pixels, right? So we're gonna have a bit more detail from the displacement, but it will take more memory to render and it will be a bit slower. Because I don't really like how the displacement map is working with this bitmap. So it's not that bad, honestly, it's not that bad. Because if we will render without a displacement, you're not gonna get that the same look, right? So even for the displacement, I think 0.6 will be enough. So now I'm gonna render without the displacement. Now look what's gonna be the difference, right? So you can see that there is a difference, right? There is a difference there, right? So I'm gonna put the displacement, well, actually, I'm trying to optimize this as much as possible, because to render a displacement for people with lower machine spec is a bit, obviously, a bit more complicated than. All right, so yeah, it kind of looks fine, but still I would love to use that displacement. Check that out here. 0.5, maybe 0.5 will work fine. The edge length too, that should be fine. So let me just render this again. Yeah, I think I can work with this. So as you can see here, this is a really rough suede, right? This is a really rough suede material. This is almost something like that, right? And obviously our color is not that great, so we can enhance it a bit. So I'm gonna go here and let me try to saturate this color even more. So something like this, right? So, oh my god, so this is way, something like that basically, and maybe make it a bit lighter as well, more 140. So let's just try that. So I'm rendering now displacement on the whole object. It's taking its time to calculate it. And this color is a lot more This color is a lot more saturated than that. So let me check with the composite. Go here, create a new layer. Let's just try it out. So create a new layer and go to VRay color and put something like that. Let's just try it out. Maybe it's gonna work just fine. So color. All right, so that's really, really intense. Does it look something like that? It has a bit more reddish, right? It has a bit more reddish, guys. So a bit more reddish somewhere there. Whoops, that's too bad. Something like that. So I think we're quite close. Maybe a bit more. And I think this is a bit more desaturated, right? Something like that, maybe. Let's plug it in there. So now for the fall off, I'm not sure how it's gonna react to it, but let's just take a look. All right, so it's not that bad. So it's not that bad. It's not the most perfect suede, but it is working quite nicely. And I think we need to darken up the highlight of this because I think it's too light. And it has to be somewhere around the same color. So for example, I will plug this guy in here and make it something like 150, 180. And that should be fine. And let me just render the last preview, and then we can switch to something like a different suede, right? So something like maybe that one. And that will be it, guys. Ooh, so that's really, really saturated now, which is quite similar to that bow there. All right, so I'm gonna cancel this render now. Press the IPR mode one more time. I just want to take a look if it's not too saturated. I don't know, to my eyes it's a bit too saturated. I will make this a bit more desaturated by just controlling this color. Bam, there we go. So something like that, right? So I will disable the displacement for now. So VRay, displacement off. And let's just check how that's reacting. All right, so the color is a bit better now. It was a bit too big for my eyes. And I'm not even sure if we do need that displacement now because I don't know, I'm kind of happy with, I mean, honestly, you can render this without the displacement if you are in a rush, right? And I think that's a bit, that difference is a bit too big. So let me just put this to 150. And let's just say I'm gonna switch the displacement one more time. Let's just make sure. So you can easily use this material without the displacement or with the displacement. It will work perfectly fine. And like I said, it always depends, what quality of a texture do you have, right? So let's just say we're gonna apply now. I just want to make another experiment. Basically, let's just say we're gonna apply some reflection, right? And that reflection will be insanely soft, which is not ideal, but it is what it is. All right, so that material now is a bit glossy. Honestly, I'm not seeing any result there. So even if I the thing is, it shouldn't have any reflection on. That's the problem. So I'm gonna go without any reflection for now, because when I look at this material here, it looks like even on the perpendicular angle, you cannot see. And this slipper, whatever it is, it was shot in a studio scene, and as you can see, you cannot even see any reflection on it, right? So I'm gonna keep this object as is, right? So that's gonna be your really rough suede, right? And if you have a better texture, obviously it will look a lot better, but it is what it is. Obviously you can create this by just making a color, for example, something like for example shift, where is it, shift as fall off, there we go. And let's just say I'm gonna add this color there, right? So I got darker color, and then I'm gonna add a lighter color, something like that. And I'm gonna make this as a bezier or whatever, but this is obviously a really primitive way of creating it. You should find a decent looking texture, right? So I'm gonna render this now with a displacement, but obviously you're not gonna get the same effect. You need to find some kind of a really nice looking suede texture, right? And the higher the quality, the better, right? So you can create things like that, right? I am using a noise map, and it is kind of working, right? Actually, it does look quite well, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, it does look quite well. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. That texture there was working fine. It's just I don't know. It's just I wasn't feeling it, honestly. Sorry if this is getting boring. Um, just basically fast forward. I will create another material, which is gonna be the last one. But honestly, this material works here fine, but it's not the best. So what we can do is actually mix these guys together. So let's just say I want only 20% of that guy there, 30 maybe. And we can, I'm gonna experiment with this texture a bit more for you guys and see how we can approach this. All right, I think I'm gonna leave this at this point because it's working quite well. So I just needed to mix with the fall off map basically. Um, Another thing I will suggest, oh, sorry about that. So another thing I will suggest you guys is to you can use a blend material, and you can use you can shift this as a copy, and mix different lightness, right, with the mask. So you would get some kind of patches of suede that are different, right? So for example, some patches will be brushed or something like that. Obviously, it's not like a velvet material or anything like that, but you can get obviously different results, right? So as you can see here, I just mixed those two bitmaps here, and it kind of looks quite nice if you ask me. Obviously, I would want to see a bit more randomization, but we can just mix them 50 by 50, right? Or even something like that. All right, I think that's enough for this material. I will try to create more options for this one, but in general, a really, really rough suede, that's how it should look. So now I'm gonna create a I don't know, a more softer suede material, something like that, right? So let me try to find a texture which I'm pretty sure I can use, maybe something from normal height, roughness height. Let's just check this guy. All right, that for me is not gonna work. What about this one? All right, we can try to create something from this bitmap, right? So let's just say I will take this material here, and we will create this as a version. Sorry, where is it? Lost it. Okay, so that's the suede, and we need to create a 13 now. So a 13 is gonna be down there somewhere. There we go. And let's just drag the albedo, which is the diffuse, height, normal, and roughness, right? So the normal map, like I mentioned before, override as 1. And so that's the roughness, and that is a height map. All right. So now what we need to do is plug them in. So for example, I will plug this into here somewhere, and delete that guy, delete that guy, delete that guy, and color correction here. Want to desaturate this a bit and make it darker, so maybe 50%. Desaturate a bit more, something like that. And I will plug all right, so this is gonna be our normal map, right? So we need to find our VRay normal map, plug this into normal, and plug this into the bump, and plug this into the bump here, right? So we can delete this guy, delete that, and we can honestly delete all of those. So now what we need to do is put color correction here, drag it there into the reflection, and obviously reflection glossiness. All right, so we can apply this material over there, and nope, let me just try to fix this by applying another material there and applying this guy here as well, right? So one thing is to check is basically the scale of the bitmap, right? So obviously this is too big, so let's just say 5 and 5. So 5 and 5 should work. So we just need to select 5 and 5 there, 5 and 5, 5 and 5 there. That's fine. and that is fine as well, right? So, and literally that's about it. Honestly, if you're gonna render this out, you should get a really cool, nice effect. There we go. I would want to make this maybe a tad bit darker. By the way, I'm blending these like crazy, so let me just 50-50 that and make this darker, maybe 30, something like that. And there you go, that's about it. So that's like a really soft, honestly, I want to make this even softer, maybe 870. And let's just try to blend this with 65. There we go. So as you can see, this is a really, really soft leather material, right? And that should work perfectly fine. It should look something like maybe that, right? So you can apply a fall off if you really want to. But this material here, it can have a bit of a fall off because it is suede, so you can apply that if you want to, but obviously a really a really matte glossy reflection should do the trick for you, right? So you would get this kind of effect there. But if you will apply this on a really rough suede, that's gonna look just weird, right? So really experiment with the bitmap a bit. By the way, this bitmap is different from this one, but I hope that this video made you some sense in how to create VRay leather materials and leather materials in general, right? So it should give you a really good start. So guys, again, please like and subscribe. You're gonna help me a lot, and please, if it's not too hard, share with others, because I wanna reach as much people as possible, and I wanna help them understand how to create V-Ray materials and materials in general, because it's not that hard. And honestly, all of this you will be able to apply by, when you're gonna be freelancing or working in a company really easily, right? And it's all about experimentation. It will take time to adjust yourself to the settings, obviously, but as long as you know where to go and what to press, you will be fine. It's just a matter of testing, experimenting with the materials, right? There is no right or wrong, but like I always say, and I will repeat myself again, a leather has to look like leather, glass has to look like glass, plastic like plastic, metal like metal, fabric like fabric, right? And not like rubber. So you have to know these main things, and you should be perfectly fine, right? So thank you very much for watching, and see you guys in my next video.